sell, so I know. Okay, let's do this. It signals on 91.3, and this morning, so I have small confession. So my guest, I have been, is he doing FBI? I've been doing FBI on him for a while, and so I sort of had like a prompting to reach out to him on Facebook, and yes, that's how it happened. You'll be fine. So this morning we'll be looking at how our consumer rights protected. They say customer is king, and for every time we keep saying that our Nigerian rights and we don't have rights, and it's a lot of questions that we keep asking ourselves, because we found out that a lot of times foreigners will come into the country and they will treat us anyhow, and the question we keep asking ourselves is who is going to protect us, who is going to fight for our rights. And for every day, for every Nigerian, you wake up and people trample upon you, and you're like, the only right we have, the only hope that we keep saying is my God will fight for you. That's like we have to look for an heavenly being, and the heavenly being is looking at us, that we have to put people in place to fight for us. But do we really know our consumer rights? There was a video that I watched. It was a funny video that went viral, where a Chinese man and a black man were fighting, and the black man was going to beat him, like, you cannot chance me in my own country. It looked funny, but it wasn't fine. It wasn't right at all, because we were being maligned. I have with me this morning, so I have one page full profile. So I just underlined the ones that is Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCC, formerly known as Consumer Protection Council. Well, it started overseeing the transition and operationalization of the commission since January 30, 2019, and when the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act was enacted, is responsible for the daily management and leadership of the commission in fulfilling its mandate to 1. Promote market competition, protect consumers, and secure remedies when consumer rights are violated. He has been in active legal practice for almost 3 decades. That's 30 years. Over this diverse career, he has gained considerable experience in transactions, civil rights and commercial litigation, regulatory work, government relations, and practice management. Let me just calm down. He's been admitted to practice law before Supreme Court of Nigeria in 1990 and before the Washington State Supreme Court in 1996. So it's plenty, but this is the ones that I picked. And then he's born. He's from Kogi State. Yes, and welcome to, please, if I don't pronounce it, I'm sorry. I've been trying to pronounce that name for a very long time. So is Babatunde Irukera. Oh, well, welcome to Signals.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so the first question today is, are our consumer rights protected?
The short answer is not sufficiently.
Okay.
The long answer is it's a very long road. We're never going to get to a point where you say that the rights are completely and sufficiently protected. Okay. But by the same token, we've traveled quite a bit of road from what it used to be.
Okay, now, so for the sake of clarity, who is a consumer in this context?
And that's a very typical question. And it's a tricky one, too. And the consumer is a multi-level legal definition, as a matter of fact, and practical definition. And so it is possible that someone who is in the value chain, the trade value chain, is a consumer in the process of that. And sometimes it's an end user who's a consumer. Almost every time when you're an end user of something, you're certainly a consumer. And then there are certain times when in the process of trade, you could be a consumer of a product or a service in the process of discharging your own commercial responsibilities.
Okay. We're always saying the customer is always right. Are we really right?
Well, the customer is always right doesn't mean that
the customer is king.
Yeah, and they are right also. And it's an admonition to providers or producers to understand that ultimately the core of their role is to please the consumer. And so that's what it is. It doesn't mean that that literally whatever a consumer or customer does is absolutely correct. But it is an appropriate framework for service providers or those who produce goods to operate, and a fair assumption on how they should treat those they serve.
Okay, so let's wait. Before I go back to that question, a lot of people don't know what FCCPC is. And there's somebody who knew you but didn't want to do that man no man and went straight to the website to file a complaint, and the person was answered to immediately, and that was good for me, right? But a lot of people don't know what FCCPC is. Tell us.
So the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission is it's an agency of the federal government, and its role, like you rightly read from my profile, two, market regulation and then consumer protection. And so one is pure, not a commercial, but one is pure commerce, and the other is also almost policing, enforcement, advocacy, and compliance regulation. So the competition side is to ensure that we've got fair competition. And we have a long history. Nigeria didn't have competition legislation for many years, until January 2019 actually. And so you have a market structure that you could almost, as a matter of default, say is anti-competitive. And so in almost every key market, you would have dominant players, potentially even monopolies. And even when you have some spread in the market, there are all kinds of vertical integrations that make competition very difficult, constitutes entry barrier, barriers for smaller guys who want to come in, or even the big guys who want to come in. And then from the analysis standpoint, I'll give you the biggest example of anti-competitive practice. The biggest anti-competitive practice world over that is most strongly penalized is cartel. That is when people who are supposed to compete come together, whether secretly or on an institutionalized platform, to discuss and arrange pricing. But that's exactly what happens in Nigeria. I mean, as far as the NURTW, right there in the car park, they're determining the price between carriers, transporters. The same thing. I mean, recently during COVID, we saw something on the news where the Bakers Association made a public announcement that the price of bread is going to go up by 60%. Now that's cartelization at an institutionalized level. But that's how business has been done. And there are sometimes potential arguments for a regulator, and sometimes an association could be a regulator, but primarily an institutionalized regulator, to get involved in pricing, especially a maximum resale price, sometimes even a minimum resale price. But there are very complex situations that allow that. For instance, where you say safety and predatory practice to make sure someone is not undercutting to chase all the others out of the market. But generally, competitors should not come together to discuss price. And so that's part of our work on the competition side. We also regulate mergers to make sure that acquisitions and business combinations do not distort the market to a point where they substantially lessen or potentially prevent competition. On the consumer protection side, the advocacy. Consumers should know their rights, and then we proceed against companies when consumers complain against them.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
It is.
It is a lot of work, because I think it was this morning I was talking to Kayode, and he was saying that he's the one of someone close to him was buying Gary from Ikorodu at 900, and then in first they're selling at 1,800, and the conversation was, it's people that are regulating these prices. It's not the herdsmen. We're trying not to be political this morning, but so it means that. So would you say that the agency FCCPC regulates the cartel, the people who come together to be like, okay, you people should calm down because of people?
Actually, our approach to it is not calm down. If you're a cartel, the penalties are stiffer than calm down.
Okay.
However, our economy is largely informal. And so just getting to regulate it all the way from the top to the ground level is difficult. I mean, and so the expectations we have must be modified by our realities. I mean, it's just like it's difficult to collect taxes on this potential Gary seller in Festac. Just for us to get the information and find the apparatus or the framework to get all the way there. And so what we're doing is we spent the first 2.5 years, and COVID has really delayed things. We've done more advocacy. Listen up, guys. This thing is a violation of law. This thing is a violation of law. And you'll find that during COVID, what I did was to take several supermarkets and pharmacies and prosecuting them in court right now. Because we had gotten to a point where we look, this advocacy is not getting to the bottom, and we had a lockdown coming, so we had to use a stronger tool to send messages. When people potentially go to jail, we expect that it will restrain the behavior of others. And so, yes, we are doing some work in regulating that space. But I'll tell you that our work is far more pronounced. It's far more pronounced in the organized private sector. And we're still finding the ways to cascade it all the way down. So, and that is the case with everything.
So I'm laughing because I remember a case that, and I think it was you, there was a certain restaurant, a Chinese restaurant in Lagos, where people didn't want to go to. Anytime you get to the gate, they'll say, if you're Nigerian, you can't get in. And I think that was where my FBI started from with you. And people had to keep calling, they kept calling you. I think it was on Twitter. They kept tweeting at you that there's a certain restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, that won't allow blacks coming. And you had to step in.
I went there myself. It was a Saturday. And so we went with a few of our operatives and sent a few people in first. And exactly that happened. And then I came in after the initial two people who sent in had reported. And I asked for custom also. And they said to me, well, sorry, we can't serve you. And so we brought the rest of the crew in and we shut the place down.
Okay, that's nice. But why do you think that they had to go to that extent that they won't allow blacks in while they're in our country?
So there are few things, and
is it a black problem or is just them?
In reality, and I'd say this to you, I mean, very clearly, there's a mixture. There's some level of prejudice, and I'm not going to dispute that, and it's global, and it's institutionalized and systemic. But on the other hand, also, there are also those who just think, look, we're an ethnic organization. We've got a lot of our people, and we're just creating a business to serve our own people, a type of food. And if you look at their supermarket, it's mostly their ethnic food. You and I won't buy or eat it. But that doesn't mean anything to me. The law is the law. Equal access, especially in our own country. It should be the case anywhere in the world, but more so, I think there is a level of audacity that makes you consider setting up a business in an environment that excludes the host community itself, especially when it's a business for food or open access. I mean, I just find it, I find it somewhat incredible.
Okay, now that we've gone to that conversation, that a lot of Lebanese, Chinese, Japanese people, that they mistreat our people. Now, we say that Nigerians are Nigerians' worst problem, but that sometimes where it's almost as if we are a sellout, where and it happens where you get into a place is owned by a Japanese or a Chinese, and there is that how do I put it? There is that for want of word, there is a lot of indiscipline, a lot of Yorubas will call it oh no, this is Yoruba in my head, the English I'm trying to get. But there is a level of slavery, yes. There's a level of slavery that they met out to our own people, and it looks as if because we're trying to earn a living,
servitude.
Yes, because we're trying to earn a living, because our people are trying to get paid daily, they go through all sorts of nonsense. I was at the salon one day, and the ladies, there were some people in Ikeja. There was a Japanese company or a Chinese company where they make air, and if they have factory accident, they'll still have to come to work the next day. And it's bad. So how then do we really fight for these people when they know that you people don't have money now, we're the ones feeding you?
So that's primarily a labor practice.
Okay.
And those employees are not consumers by law.
Okay.
However, the FCCC has gotten involved where we saw that, because our theory of liability is that to the extent that you're making something for consumers to ultimately purchase.
Okay.
Your conduct in how you make it, if it presents to you a competitive advantage over those who comply with the law, is anti-competitive.
Okay.
And so, for instance, if you take people and make them work without paying them, and you're coming to the same market, you have a competitive advantage against your competitor who's paying their employees. And so we find a theory, a linear connection between the outcome and the conduct. And that's the way we've gotten involved. And I must say this, and there is, I mean, I don't know if it's just African, I suppose it's global, in the sense that parents would generally, reserve the prerogative to penalize their children, perhaps sometimes even in an excessive manner for themselves, but distrust
another person
others to do the same.
Aha.
I mean, for instance,
you don't beat my child.
for instance, I'm pretty happy to sit and be driven by a driver, but but when I'm driving, if I want to get somewhere in a hurry, I drive myself and make my driver sit with me, and that's not fair on the driver. I feel more confident about how fast I can drive myself. He should actually lack confidence in how fast I get to drive him. But so that is a fundamental piece of our dissatisfaction. The reason why this distinction is important is, speaking as an individual, I lived over a decade of my life in Chicago. And I have had interactions with law enforcement in the U.S. that I felt, was less than transparent based on my race. But I'd say to you, I have been far more times and more significantly poorly treated by Nigerian police than any police force in the United States.
Okay, so we are our problem.
So in some sense, what the situation is quite systemic and environmental. Okay. And what we need to do collectively as a people, and certainly as regulators, is we've come to a point where some things are just not acceptable. We don't accept to do it to ourselves, and we certainly don't accept for others to do it to us. What I find perhaps even most offensive when others do it to us is that they've assumed a certain standard. They've learned to live in a standard and in an environment where what they are doing is inappropriate. And so I'm going to hold you accountable to a standard that you've assumed in a different environment. And that's what I say to all the multinationals. I said, look, out there you do differently. Assume that standard. You will, if you internally agree that there's a basic way to do things, don't come here and do it differently.
Okay, thank you so much. It signals on 91.3. We're talking our consumer rights protected with Babatunde Irukera. And if you have questions or comment, call us 009. WhatsApp 009-234-5913 or call us 0151519113. Now, the world has gone digital and a lot of businesses don't even have physical stores. Is there a form of regulation for this digital market to ensure that the rights of the consumers are protected?
We're struggling with that, and it's a terrible struggle. The vast majority of businesses online, there's no way to find them. Yesterday, I had a long conversation with someone who, you've got sharks online, loan sharks, providing loans to people at 100%.
You send you messages.
They're not licensed by any financial services regulator, and we're working with platforms like Facebook, and we have a mutual understanding to shut down certain sites or certain
apps.
Well, not even apps, but certain advertisements on their platforms. But some of them are not even on the regular platforms that we have this engagement with. And maybe people say, look, we found that we've tracked, and some of these businesses are not even in Nigeria. They're somewhere online. They have bank accounts in Nigeria. Someone said to me, why don't you just proceed and just block their accounts? I said,
of their BVNs and all of that.
Isn't that excessive to just go and block someone's bank account? There has to be a process to get into that point. And so it's a very difficult thing. But the only thing I can say about this is that Nigeria is not alone in this problem.
Okay.
Globally, we're considering a framework. For instance, I'll tell you one of the biggest problems the United States has today are romance scams. And they believe that most of it emanate from Nigeria. The sheer number of romance scams, a man who's posing as a woman who's even posing as a man, and some people even send money from the United States thinking that what they're doing is pursuing a romantic relationship. So this is a problem that's everywhere.
Okay, let me take this call. Hello, good morning. Nope. Please reduce the volumes of your radio set. The numbers to call is 009 191 3913 or 009 234 5913. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Mr. from Agbado.
I won't be
You
able
see,
to...
when we want to protect our consumer rights, what we need first is right of Nigeria, people, strong currency. This is stabilize and fix the price of commodity and control. And we do it with all kind of devaluation. What is the fourth Nigerian economy right? We need to be protected before we can protect Nigerian economy, consumer rights. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you. Did you hear that?
So his problem is, well, not his problem, the point is speaking about is the commodity prices are sensitive to the to Forex, and that he thinks that we need to protect or defend the currency as a starting point. I understand that. I mean, although that is beyond the mandate of the FCCC, but I certainly understand the point he's making.
Okay, then. It still signals on 91.3 Lagos stocks. Okay, so Spencer is saying that I should ask you about cable and foreign decoder channels. How do we protect the rights of consumers?
Oh. So pay TV continues to be one of our greater challenges. But what I'd like to say about it is that I remember when I took this role in 2017, the balloon was full and was busting. The complaints were at the highest possible point about poor service, exploitation, and a lack of value for money proposition in pay TV. And we took the industry on. I remember going to court myself in 2018, securing injunctive relief against the companies. And one thing I can say from our end is that the complaints have gone down by as much as 80% as far as value proposition, in the sense that complaints about the service quality and all of that, and whether people are getting the service when they pay for it. What continues to be a problem also now is how much we pay. People are still displeased with how much we pay. And that is a work in progress. And I'll tell you how it's a work in progress. Prior to when we confronted pay TV, prices used to rise literally every 6 months, every 9 months. I mean, typically twice a year. But that hasn't happened anymore. And now the operators, all of them, are very concerned. They're engaging us a lot more and trying to justify why they might need to raise prices. And one thing is, we're saying, look, we understand that this is a free market, we cannot control price, but the value proposition, adjust the bouquets, redesign this, put in more for the people, let people be able to find their comfort. Perhaps your premium bouquets can cost $1 zillion, but there needs to be more bouquets that people can find that are acceptable, fairer priced, and that is a continuing engagement. Ultimately, what would work, like most other industries, but more so in pay TV, is competition. We've got to get more players in there. And when more players come, the best regulator is when
there are many
competitors are competing for the custom of consumers.
But it's almost as if we have monopoly of one pay TV.
Now, and the reason is not anything that is created by the government, if you ask me. And it is, again, like I said, the lack of a competition framework for many years has allowed some things to crystallize. And so it's going to take time. And what we are doing on our side is to eliminate entry barriers. And so what we've done in pay TV and in some other places is that there is no more exclusive agreements. CNN cannot say we have an exclusive agreement with Star Times or any other and we will not give you. No, that is no longer allowed. And it's fair pricing across the board. You can't give one at a price that is materially disparate from the price of another. And so we've also gone into content creation in the integrated value chain. And so you cannot create content and say that you've created this content only for yourself. You must democratize it, even if it's at a cost. And so we're continuing to eliminate those barriers over a period of time. We anticipate others will come in and be successful in the sector.
Now, let's even talk about what's the role of the consumer in ensuring the smooth running of FCCC. Because, yes, we are clamping down on other people. What is our own role as a consumer?
I think the most important thing in a consumer regulatory framework is a consumer's sophistication to demand their rights. And when those rights are not respected, to insist.
Okay.
I assure you, maybe that wasn't the case before, but now there's sufficient, maybe not sufficient, but there's quite some more knowledge about a consumer regulator in Nigeria. And I know that these the big companies, they don't want to have any problem with us. They think,
You're fighting for the masses.
Yeah, they know that they don't want to have any problem with us. So because of that, 50% of the time, if a consumer says, no, I know my right, I know where to go, sort this out, 50% of the time the companies will. When they don't insist, another 25% will. And so leave the remaining 25% that do not have any trouble confronting us, we'll confront them.
Okay, so Nigeria at 61, what are your thoughts?
Still a baby.
At 61?
Absolutely, for a nation.
Okay. Not for an adult.
And I think that our age will never be an excuse for our challenges or our difficulties. Because I'm a scholar of we do not need to reinvent the wheel. We're 61 at a time when those who are 200 and something have developed certain mechanisms. And so we cannot use the fact that we're only 61 to say that some of our problems are justifiable. No, that's not what I mean. But in the whole scheme of things also, as far as building institutions, strengthening them, and then for our country to have a democratic identity from an ideological standpoint, we're still growing. And we should have we should have set out at dawn. We didn't, but we're still setting out before dusk.
Okay, that's inspiring. That's kind of speech you want to be hearing every October 1. It's not my name. Now, so far from 2019 till this is 2021 October, what are the wins? Share your wins with us.
Well, I think the biggest win for me is gradually, we're not there yet, but I mean, we'll pat ourselves on the back for the small wins. Is that we're moving responsiveness and sensitivity to consumers to industry. I think that that's a reform that if industry takes it on by itself, it wouldn't matter if the government agency even becomes abolished. Industry would have taken it on. So the biggest thing for me is you're getting an industry, a market that is now more concerned about how consumers feel. And by far, you're getting consumers who are just finding their voices and are becoming, almost belligerent sometimes. I think that for me is a very powerful reform.
Okay, so what has been the setbacks for you? And I ask with a lot of reverence.
They're the usual setbacks of human talent capacity, insufficient funding. But the biggest setback for me also is still the point that is our greatest win. Is still moving this reform to a complete contract between the consumer and the companies. There's a social pact and a commercial contract between a customer and a service provider. And that the customers find it easier to come to me when they're dissatisfied is a misnomer and a disconnect. And so the greatest challenge is still figuring how to make sure that companies have very robust, easily accessible, simplified, standalone feedback mechanisms so that consumers go first to them and I become the secondary complaint resolution mechanism.
Okay, so I have questions on Facebook, and Miwa is saying that how is organization affecting the poor consumer in terms of the commodity market? That's his first question. And the second question is the agency able to affect market prices?
Good. And the two questions are actually linked. And like I said, where we're acting the least is at the informal retail market.
Okay.
And I have my reasons for that. I'm sure maybe a successor might have a different philosophy. I think by the time
you want to leave?
Well, I mean, at some point I will.
Okay, continue.
And my philosophy about the retail market is that the vast majority of people in the retail market are as much victims as the consumer themselves. There's no institutional process. There's no supply chain that ultimately supplies them and allows them feedback all the way to where it comes from. And so what we're doing is addressing issues first at the production level, then at the distribution channel level. And so you're not likely to see us operating that much at the retail point. And a lot does happen. What we're finding out is that if we manage transparency and fairness, even at distributor level, when it gets to the retail, the single individual in the market, the mom and pop store, they themselves extort. They go excessive. And so our problem now is you've got a fellow victim victimizing fellow victim. And you've got a regulator saying, let me not victimize a victim so that other victims don't get victimized. It's very complex.
It's circle that is not broken.
It's very complex. And I just feel that putting people in the market, doing enforcement in the market, confiscating products in the open market, just creates victims of these retailers also, because they're strugglers. When that tomato seller is extorting you, she is
being extorted by another person.
She is the poor Nigerian that you're asking me to protect in another context.
So the question here is, okay, before I ask, hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Your name or where are you calling us from?
My name is Taya. I'm calling from Lucky.
Okay, go ahead, please.
There was a time ago I had an issue with the bank.
Yes.
And I complained with the bank because the response wasn't encouraging. So I now went route to Central Bank. Looking at 1 month now, there's no feedback.
Wow.
I mean, one problem I have is that with Central Bank is that they don't have the particular number you can call and make your complaint. So my question is, for that protection now, is it possible to call your number, that is phone number they can call and complain? Since Central Bank doesn't have a number like that, I should have the issue with the banking system.
Oh yes, we
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you. We do have telephone numbers, but we also even encourage people to just use the portal. We have an online portal, and if you go to the App Store, you can find the FCCPC app there. Complain there. If you complain through that portal, we receive it. We would respond immediately, log that on, and give you a case identifier. And so you're able to follow up your case. Now, do we resolve all complaints? We haven't succeeded in doing that. But are we as responsive as we possibly can be? Yes. And do we resolve majority of the complaints that come? We certainly do.
Okay, then let me take another question from Temitayo Opajobi, and he goes, where are you? Nice interview. I think FCPC should compel a policy where all service providers place the number of FCCPC in all their outlets. This will make it easier for the public to reach them.
I would prefer for them to place a number that they can be reached. Because in some sense, what we're doing is we're encouraging their indolence to say, look, if you're not happy with me, come and report me to somebody else. The price of that product they're selling already captures the potential for them to need to manage a process post-sale. And now, what now needs to happen is they should carry consumer information as part of their responsibility, saying this is how to report to us. When you're not satisfied with us, this is how to reach the FCCPC.
Okay, so he also Tayo asks a question: what happens to the issue of compromise among the FCCPC officials? Yes.
I mean, the compromise is a crime. Whatever happens to compromise anywhere in the world. I haven't had that much experience with that in the period I've been there, because it's not that simple. How are you going to compromise? So the company is going to say, instead of returning 2 cans of carbonated soft drink, I'd rather pay the FCCPC employee 10,000 naira. So the nature of our own work from a consumer complaint standpoint is not a viable mechanism for compromise. Now, there are all kinds of other things we do from an enforcement standpoint. And so we have our policies and systems to protect and prevent corruption.
Okay. So I have 8 minutes and we're going to manage that 8 minutes well. So how do we protect the consumer in terms of transportation in a commercial bus, in transport fare charges, when rain falls, fares go up? When rain falls, fares go up. And then secondly, the driver of the commercial vehicle against the agberos in terms of fare charges.
And like I said, these are some of the challenges with the informal sector. In most other places, there's a bus. You've purchased a bus ticket, and that bus ticket doesn't care about the weather. And so you would see that in the institutionalized transportation system. I mean, the BRT fares are not going to go up because it's sunny or rainy. Yeah. And the same thing in most other institutionalized transport systems. But I hear you. And we're engaging, like we said, at the association level, the NURTW and all of them. And hopefully, as we proceed, things will get better.
Hello, good morning. Please quickly call us back, 009-234-5913 or 0809-191-3913. My question is this. When would Nigeria get to the point... Okay, let me answer you because you're a customer. Hello?
Hello.
Good morning, quickly.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Tony from Lagos, sir.
Okay, Tony, go ahead, please.
I'm really glad you're having this conversation.
Thank you.
There are some of these unregistered loan apps. Who goes about sending messages to people? What do we do about those people?
Okay. Thank you.
I am looking for them. I want
plenty.
to find
They will
just
send you
one.
all sorts of
I want to find
all
just one person. I just want to find one. If I find one, I will prosecute that all the way to the end by myself, so that others will know that incredible violation of people's privacy and their rights is so inviolate that the hottest part of regulatory hell should be reserved for people who do that.
Okay, then. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. That noise.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Quickly, reduce the volume of your radio set.
Okay, thank you.
Your name?
My name is Idowu, and I'm calling from Ikorodu.
Okay, Idowu from Ikorodu. Question or comment?
Comment.
Go ahead, please.
One, I would like to appreciate Irukera and his agency. I want to attest to the fact that they do respond to people's complaints. Some time ago, I had problem with Ikeja Electric concerning my meter application, and I got a response. Howbeit, it was 8 months later after the meter had been installed, because I didn't let Eco Electric also rest. What I'm encouraging them to do is to increase their response time.
Okay,
Then, two, is the issue of, he talked about this online people loan and investment and things like that. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and he said there is this outfit that investors' money got trapped in because there was a move by government agencies against that company. And they went to court, and the people's money is still trapped there. Now, in the final analysis, just like we had in the case of Nospecto, Nospecto went under not because they were not able to pay their investors, but because government moved against them.
So,
how can we create a balance?
Good. That's I get the point you're making, and thanks for the kind words. And yes, I understand that sometimes government policy materially affects business, but that's still no reason for a business not to be responsive to its investors. You still have to engage, and there are a few that are actually under our supervision right now, especially in the agri value chain, where they're at least staying in there, engaging, and managing to pay back bit by bit. And so I won't excuse a lack of responsiveness on account of government policy.
Okay. When would Nigeria create strong institutions?
I believe we're in the process of doing that.
Where the institutions are bigger than the people.
Very important. And part of it is what you're doing for people to continue to insist and demand their rights, at least for something like a consumer protection.
Okay. While we wrap this up quickly, looking back here now, what's that one thing that has kept you going?
Oh, I live for the fight.
Vulture. Living for the fight.
I live for the fight. I think my entire legal career, and I don't know if this was something that was latent or in it, I think what I've enjoyed the most in being a lawyer has actually always been trying to level the playing field and to somewhat, and the career highlights and satisfaction that I have had is really by looking out for the small guys.
Okay, so what's the future?
And whatever thing I do, either as a private lawyer, this is what I did. I think post-government, this is also what I'm still going to keep doing. I don't know how, but I think I'll continue to take on the small issues and deal with them in the biggest way I can.
Were you in did you do Aluta in school?
No, apparently I actually didn't at all.
Okay. Okay, one last call. It has gone. Muiwa from Facebook says that, is there a possibility of the agency creating the problems for middlemen?
Creating the problem?
Yes.
Oh, we certainly are creating problems for middlemen. I mean, that we exist at all is a problem for middlemen at all, because we trace all the way back up. Distribution channels will tell you that they're having trouble with sending material through people who are not part of the institutionalized channel. But middlemen are part of business. When they do their business ethically and in a manner that is fair, and sometimes middlemen are so important even to business. They create jobs. They even sometimes modify pricing. Sometimes they are the channels for competition. So we embrace them, but when there's a problem, we address it.
Okay, then. Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Your name and where you calling us from? Finally.
My name is Alpha Isaac. I'm calling from Lekki.
Okay, quickly. Question or comments? The time is up.
Okay, my comment is first of all, I want to thank this anchor of this program for bringing up this topic, because it's really crucial to our own economy here.
Okay, thank
and
you.
Basically, I want to cite one company that folded up in Agbara precisely. And this company is actually a huge company, but at the end of the day, they shut down because of government regulatory policies that was affecting them. They shut down and then relocated to another country and started importing their own products into the country.
Okay.
Now, the country, we have ended up losing labor because those workforce that was in the place are no longer working there. Now, what are we going to do to ensure that such companies does not just fold up, knowing fully well the capacity of labor they have been able to employ and all that? So this is my take on this.
Thank you. Okay.
And so I think I know what company you're talking about, and that happened a few years ago. To some extent, some of those moving pieces are not entirely within the control or even mandate of the FCCC, but one of our roles is to also advise government with respect to policy concerning competition and consumer protection, which we're doing.
Okay, then. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for answering all of our questions. Yes, I exhausted my 20 questions. Thank you so much for everyone who has called and listened in. So we come your way again next week Saturday. Thank you so much. I am grateful. It's really an honor. So we come your way again next week Saturday. Like we always say on Signals, dream again, create opportunities for people. And because people will be people, please keep creating opportunities for them. Have a wonderful weekend. God bless. Yes, yes, we won it. Thank you, everyone.